Hello everyone, and welcome back once again to Garry's Mod. And today, I'm going to be exploring a series of maps with a particular theme. That theme being urban exploration, usually referring to, but not exclusively limited to, the exploration of abandoned structures. Now, those of you who've been watching me for a while know that this is a topic that I talk about all the time. It's probably my biggest interest in real life, and I've even made a few videos actually doing it. And every time I do, I always get a few comments saying, I would love to do this, but I'm too afraid to. And what do we do when we want to do something but we're too afraid to? We do it in video games. And what do we do when that topic requires maximum immersion? We do it in VR video games. And so that's kind of the purpose of this video, is I want to try out some of these maps which discard that horror focus and are instead more like the real thing. Just strolling through dilapidated structures, really just for the enjoyment and the serenity in doing so. And can it hold up to the real experience as a substitute, or even just act as a useful set of training wheels? You know, a while back I had a script for a video that I may still do at some point. I'll certainly refine it. But I wanted to answer a lot of people's questions about urban exploration, because I've done a fair bit of it. Not as much as others. I'm no Indiana Jones myself, but, I've spent a fair amount of time doing it. I've learned some of the ins and outs. And I feel like what it came down to was tempering a lot of the expectations that people have for it. Because a lot of the time when people discuss urban exploration, it comes down to stuff like breaking in and weapons and what tools should I bring. And in my experience, it's not really like that. You know what? I think I'm going to cut that monologue there, and I'll talk more about the do's and don'ts once we've actually started exploring, because there's certainly going to be a lot of ground to cover. And there we go. The sight of broken windows and brick through the trees is always so rewarding. That's how you know you found something. And I mean, look where we are. We're in the middle of the woods. Even the road next to it appears to be abandoned, gate wide open. That's a sign that this place has truly been left to be reclaimed by nature. Meaning that not only is it going to be a lot more gorgeous for pictures and stuff, but you probably won't have to worry about security, police, anything like that. It is truly in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of signs that you need to look for to kind of gauge the level of risk in a location. Now, I've just gone over the security risk, but looking up at this, I can already see a massive health and safety risk. See how you look up into those windows and you see sky through the windows? The ceiling has collapsed, which means a lot of the floors will likely be in a pretty similar state, or about to be. I would tread very lightly in a place like this. I might even avoid going upstairs altogether. But do as I say, not as I do. My curiosity always ends up getting the better of me. Doors wide open shows that nobody's maintaining this property. Let's shine our light in and see what we can see. Now, that doesn't penetrate too far. Got a staircase right there. Yeah, this is like an admission area. I believe the story of this map is that it's a psychiatric hospital, and this map is kind of special to me because I actually played it back before I was doing like serious urban exploration. And so it really kind of lit that fire in me and made me want to go out and see stuff like this. Prior to this, all I had really explored was a couple of houses. Actually, my first one, or really my second one, was a house in my town, which eventually got renovated and people live there now. And I find that so cool. I mean, one of the big joys of urbex is learning about the history of a place and seeing what happens afterwards. Unfortunately, most of the time, that something is demolition, but occasionally you get a story like that where it gets repurposed and turned into something. And now we've got a couple of vehicles along the side. This is something I've never personally seen, although I have seen in a lot of photographs. Entire vehicles just left to rot. Well, I have seen forklifts, but I haven't seen, like, automobiles. And usually what I'll do, of course we don't have to do this in Garry's Mod, but usually I'll do a 360 check of a place. Number one, to look for anything interesting. Number two, to look for additional entrances and exits that I can use in the event that someone parks outside while I'm inside. And number 3, it gives you a little bit of time. So imagine you didn't notice some Karen with the binoculars looking out the window on a nearby property, seeing you walk up to the place, and she calls the cops. When you're walking around, you haven't really done anything yet. Oh, that scared me. I almost thought there was someone standing up there, silhouetted up there. But as I was saying, walking around the outside kind of gives you a couple minutes where if anybody's gonna show up, they'll show up while you're still outside, rather than camping out while you're in the building, leaving you panicked and wondering what to do. And at that point, of course, you still have plausible deniability. Oh yeah, I was just checking the place out, taking some cool pictures. It's the worst time to be caught is when you're entering and exiting a building, to me. Now, it's never happened to me, but that's kind of the smoking gun. And it looks like this place only has one entrance and exit. What's this over here? Now, even though those doors are wide open, what I would probably prefer in real life, at least for an exit, is to go through these windows. Because they're over here in the bushes, not very likely that I'll be seen from afar. But let's go inside. I would also be reassured to know that there are multiple ways in and out. Yeah, this is a wide open area. This place seems to be in slightly better shape than the rest. Now here we are. Of course, this isn't going to matter in Garry's mod, but something that's really fun to do in real life, which I always overlook, is to go into the little offices, dig through cabinets, look at the tiny details. You can learn a lot that way. I once explored with some family an abandoned health and recreation center, and while I was going around taking pictures of the architecture, my cousin actually went through the office and was able to tell like a whole story about like a messy divorce and lying to the IRS. It was actually fascinating, and it's the kind of thing I would have completely missed. We had checkbooks that, eventually ended with a last name change and child support payments. Now, the lower floors of a building tend to be the darkest. It looks like this is a medical area. Now, a lot of psychiatric centers in America and Canada are huge, basically psychiatric cities with many buildings. In this case, it's been condensed to one building, but in my experience, these kind of things would normally be separate. Patient housing in one place and a separate medical hospital on site. I hate creepy corners like this. But yeah, first floor tends to be the darkest, because the first floor is typically where you want to board up everything, because that's your main entryway. Oh, look at this. A collapsed elevator with a big old hole in the ceiling. Oh, that is such a nice amount of detail. This is a cool asset, this rusted cage with a shaft of light coming down from above. Here's a small little cafeteria, a serving area. And sometimes I really like what boards can do with the natural lighting of a place. I mean, let me turn my flashlight off for a second and just look how cozy this is. By cutting off the light on that side, you have the shafts coming in through here, giving just that sort of faux morning glow. I could imagine coming here, sitting down at this bench and just eating a bowl of Cheerios by the window. That musty, moldy smell that these places have, which I probably shouldn't be inhaling so much, but I've really come to like it. You know where you can get a similar smell? Walk down to your basement. That smell, if you have one. But yeah, boarding up the lower floor, it deters people climbing in, which is, of course, the first thing a property owner is going to care about from a liability perspective. But if you see the second and third and all that floors boarded, A, you'll have a place that's probably in much better shape, But it also indicates a property owner that cares much more about trespassing, which can be dangerous, at least from a legal perspective. Is this what I think it is? This is an honest-to-God padded cell. No. Okay, doors on a timer, noted. Well, those windows seem awfully high to be useful. You know, in all the time I've spent exploring, I've never seen a padded cell. Now, granted, it's possible that the padding had been removed from the rooms that would have been used for such things, but I've never seen it, and to be honest, I'm not sure how widespread such things really were or are. Don't ask me how that exit sign is still lit. Only have so many assets to work with, I guess. I don't know if you can see this or if it's like a weird VR thing. But look at this weird rainbow hue in these glass windows. That is so cool. I love getting hung up on like little details like this. Sometimes when I do these explores, I'm so on edge, worried about getting caught, that I don't tend to think about stuff like that. I tend to miss the details. I always tend to, well, kind of miss the trees for the forest, I guess. Bathrooms. Yeah. I would be very reassured by that road being abandoned. But I hate little medication counters like this. Because they tend to cast shadows over these little edges around the windows, making you think, because they tend to be rounded, that there's something moving inside as you walk around them. And as I approach, I always expect something to pop up from beneath these little half walls. Here's the top of that elevator. It's always so tempting, and I have to resist the urge in a place when I see an elevator stopped at the floor I'm at. Oh, it looks like I didn't even notice on the way in. There's a train car just parked in the grass out there. Sometimes you'll find weird things like that where you kind of wonder like how that even came to be. Something that just doesn't belong. In my video Beyond Seeing, you can see we were exploring a place and came upon what looks like some kind of kitchen or a dishwashing area that somebody had set up like a whole like birthday party in. Balloons, plates, tablecloths, or the plastic kind anyway. Somebody had a fun time. And that's the thing, with places like this, you kind of tend to see all these overlapping layers of history. In one place you might find, a patient area or a doctor's office, and at the same time graffiti from the modern day referencing current events. And all the while, maybe fire hoses running through, as if the place was used for training at one point. Now here is what would surely be the highlight of this location for me. I find that every place has some feature that really steals the show, and this would definitely be that for me. Oh, look how pretty that is. So much of the common perception of urbex comes at it from a horror perspective, but every location I find kind of has its own personality, and I hope with the other maps that I explore in this video, you'll kind of see some of that come out. Because yes, some places are spooky, some places just have spooky areas, but for the most part, I just think it's so pretty and so calming. I mean, all this destruction, this decay, but all the while you can hear the wind blowing through the treetops and the open windows, the birds chirping. And that's kind of my main takeaway from these things. That's what I try to look for. Now, a lot more damage up there. I guess we'll start looking for a stairwell to the third floor. Is there anything else we can see? It looks like the road actually curves and goes out that way. Maybe there's something over there? Something this map is doing actually really cool. I want to point out this detail. Hospitals will very often have these handrails going along the walls, which makes sense. If you have patients that aren't necessarily like physically capable, you'll want to have something to guide them as they walk. You know what? Now that I think about it, I have to put these on the map that I'm working on. Oop. Unclipped stair. Ooh. This is why you always watch your step. You never know. I was exploring a place one time. I don't think this is on video, but I was actually walking down a set of stairs, and I just kind of happened to skip a step. I wasn't really paying attention, and it was only... My subconscious was guiding me that day, because it was only when I turned around that I realized that step was actually missing. Would have fallen and broken my leg or something. Yep. In places like this, I always like to stop and just stare out the windows. Wonder what someone would think if they were to come by and see my silhouetted form in here. Point me out to their friends, and I'm gone when they all look up. That's how you spread a ghost story. I imagine these rooms are going to be more of the same. And that's how it often is in these places. These toilets are exceptionally high. Or maybe I'm just short. Although you can sometimes rely on the decay to create unique visuals. It always gives me such vertigo looking down an elevator shaft. Usually what I'll do if I really want that shot is I'll brace a hand on the wall or even lean entirely against a wall and just try and lean my camera out vertically. Make sure that I have my feet wide spread apart. But I don't like heights at all, so it's always a really scary shot to try and get, and you always have to weigh the risk. Yeah, I think I've seen most of this building. I'll likely check the grounds out a little bit more, but I'm thinking that's about it for this place. Now that's going to be it for this location, and I've been a little extra talkative for this one because I have explored this map before a long time ago, and I really wanted to start this off by kind of giving you an idea of what the experience is like, because I find so many people have kind of unrealistic or, not exactly accurate expectations when it comes to what urban exploration actually is. I have played the next map we're going to try, but I haven't played the one after that, so that one is going to be an actual, genuine, first-time exploration for me. Next up is GM Explore Mill. So presumably this is some kind of mill or industrial site of some sort. And this is doing something actually kind of neat from the get-go that maps usually don't do, and that's I'm going to have to look around and try and find a way in. That's a big part of what the first 360 check of a structure is like. It's just trying to find some hole, some gap, some weakness that you can get in through. Now, I personally never had to resort to climbing over a barbed wire fence, although there are methods for doing that. But yeah, a lot of making your way to an entrance is a lot of this. A lot of, trudging through tall grass, ducking under branches overhead, keeping your arms this high, so that my camera doesn't drag against all the scratchy thorns and all that. Now here we see a piece of fence down, and this would be good enough for me. Oop. Never mind the barbed wire post going right through my face. We can weather it. But I would be very confident that this place is truly abandoned because, as you can see, totally wide open. Normally, you have to defeat 2 layers. If there's a fence, you have to defeat the fence, and then you have to defeat whatever boarding and barricades are on the doors and windows themselves. Depending on the type of place it is, you can actually get really creative and even, take tunnels in if they were connected to other structures at one time. This, however, is a little bit more dangerous from a safety from, security and police and all that perspective, because were being overlooked by presumably occupied apartment buildings. Now that would be dangerous. Whenever people... I find abandoned properties always have some old person watching them. Somebody who just makes it their business to call the police on whoever might go in there. And I can understand it to a degree. Most people, will be looking for trouble, starting fires, spray painting, whatever. But give me a break, man. Lots of open stuff all the way around. Here are the silos. Thankfully, I've come here during the daylight, so my experiences should be a little better than my previous encounter with one of these places, which was in Grainwind 77. This is easy here, but going through grass this tall would be much, much more of a chore in real life. It does not allow you to pass as easily. You'll come through covered in bugs and ticks. Just terrible. So now we've completed our 360 check, confirmed that there's multiple entrances and exits. I would be very unconfident about those windows up there. I would probably try to enter on the opposite side in real life. But for the sake of keeping things organized, I guess we'll come in through the largest openings. And yeah, for an industrial site like this, I personally don't find them all that interesting, unless for some reason they still have electric lighting on. But things like this, they can be fun for a couple of minutes, but they tend to not really be worth investing a lot of time in, because they're basically just hollow concrete shells in the middle of the woods. They're still worth checking out because, again, you never know what you might find. Sometimes you get really surprised. They're just not personally my cup of tea. My cup of tea is more like in the vein of hospitals and stuff like that. But there's a lot of stuff like this out in the Midwest. The other side of this is that for not being too visually interesting, they can sometimes tend to be a lot more dangerous. As you can see here, the railings have all worn away if they were ever here to begin with. Grain silos can have just open holes in the floor that drop down like 100 feet. They're very, very dangerous. Often no warning. I once checked out a room on a roof that was at the top of an elevator shaft, and there was just an open rectangle just in the floor. If you weren't paying attention, you could walk right in and fall 7-8 stories. Yeah, now I would be very hesitant to walk on metal grates like this. What is this, MC Escher's house? I don't know how realistic these structures are. But the thing that's most concerning to me is the electric lighting. Like, why would that be on? I find that maps like this stand way better when... I'm not going to be able to platform that in VR. Maps like this stand way better when you just allow natural light to do its thing. Because when we were outside, it was so pretty. It had such gorgeous yellow lighting, and... just translate that to here. Allow places that would be dark to just be dark. It's urban exploration. I know what I'm getting into. I'm bringing my own lights. It's not like Garry's Mod doesn't provide me with all kinds of lights, so just let me do that. Let each area speak for itself. Let each area have its own mood. Because that's how it really is. You can go through some serious mood whiplash in the course of a single location. When we were exploring that rec center that I told you about before, it was a fun thing, going through all this history, looking at all this exercise equipment. And then it got a lot spookier when we pushed open this unassuming door at the back after we thought we had already finished. And there was this huge pitch black gym. I mean, we were having all this fun. We push open what we thought was going to be a closet and just onto a void. Just a wall of impenetrable darkness that we couldn't even see the other side shining our flashlight in. That was an incredible experience. But you can't do that if you just flood it all with electric lighting that shouldn't even be there. This overgrowth is always fun, though. Yeah, try and spot me now, Karen. Alright. See, this is what I was talking about. Even in a place like this that I don't personally find all that interesting, this would be a nice picture right there if I could frame it right, if I had a wide enough lens. Although the vertigo might put me off a little bit from getting too close to the edge to set up my tripod. Luckily, there'd be enough light where I wouldn't really need it. But anyway, on to the next one, which is also, I believe, made by the same creator as this. Now here we are on the previous map's counterpart, GM Explore Asylum. And it is incredible the rush that I get even from seeing a virtual abandoned place emerge on the edge of the dense overgrowth. And call it phantom sense, although I may be misusing the term in this case, but I kind of feel like I can smell that musty smell wafting through the forest. This is the kind of place that you would know you're close to by smell before you gain sight. Oh, this is so cool. It's one of those times where I'm so close and yet I can't even make out a shape of the building yet. Although it looks like there's lights through the trees. Is this going to be one of those things where... Oh, I hope it is. Looks like there's some smokestacks back there. I don't know if those are part of the background, but this looks like it's going to be one of those things that's more wide than tall. Oh, I hope I'm right about that, because those tend to be the kind of places, in my experience, that really allow you to just kind of go like, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy, and kind of follow breadcrumbs of things that catch your interest until you've seen the whole thing. I find when there's a lot of floors, or it's a thinner building with a lot of floors, it tends to compartmentalize things more, and you don't get as much of an idea for how things connect. I think it's so cool to go off on some tangent and come back to some place you've seen before, and think, oh, back there is where that door I saw before led. I see we're still doing this in the shadow of apartment buildings. Not the best thing, but whatever. This is a video game. We can see right through to the end. Now here is someplace I can imagine myself setting up a tripod to take a picture. Probably go HDR for this. Take one that exposes for the hallway, still leave it in shadow, but not this dark. And then I'd have to take another one to expose for the light on the outside. Now this is a more realistic structure. Mostly empty, which a lot of these places tend to be, but in pretty good shape. Some graffiti around, which is a little odd for some place so open as this, but it's also quite out of the way. Maybe it's not quite as well known as some other places. I'd imagine this might be some kind of sleeping quarters, because this would be a medication window. Either that, or this could be perhaps some kind of day room. Sometimes medications would be served in day rooms rather than at the sleeping area. You know, I'm going to shut up for a little bit and just let you guys enjoy this, because I've been talking this whole time. I love those details. The window above the door frame, but the doors are all gone, which is itself not unrealistic. Some very high ceilings, though. Yeah, this extends further out that way. Oh, how gorgeous is that? It's architectural features like that that always stick with me. I feel like that's what I'm there for when I explore. It's mostly seeing the architecture, not just how it's built, but how it decays. What it looks like now, and thinking about what it may have looked like then. It's so cool to me how some of these places, you'll be shocked when you look up when they were abandoned. Oh, this is more of like a courtyardy area. Something that looks like ancient ruins may have only been empty for 20 years. Hello, dark, windowless room. What might you have been used for? It's very realistic for this place to be so empty as it is, but, you know, sometimes that leaves room for a lot of speculation, because without furnishings, it can be really hard to tell what a place was used for. Oh, there is another floor, though. Should we come back to that later, after we finished exploring the first, or will that be kind of a detour? I think that might be it for this side of things. No, it goes down a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to check these stairs because I'm fairly certain that this will probably go up to some kind of roof access, right? Offices. Administration, or maybe storage and stuff for janitors, engineers. They tend to kind of have their own area. Sometimes it's good practice to just lower your light and have a look at the natural light and how it interacts with the environment. I mean, that hallway back there was great for that. I may not even really need a flashlight for this area. Okay, that goes all the way down that way. I think there might be a loop, possibly around this courtyard. Hang on, I'm trying to see how this all connects. No. Okay, so that goes down on its own branch, and that back there is its own as well. But each one is probably a dead end. Toilets. See, a lot of exploring, and this is more true the more well-known a location is trying to find that needle in a haystack. Where haven't other people been? Well, someone's been here. In a place like this, a room with a couple of bathtubs side by side like this would most likely be some kind of hydrotherapy, right? I think I have seen pictures of such things, although I'm not really familiar with what such treatments would actually be. Hello, here's the ominous chair storage room. Can we enter back over there? Take a shortcut? Whoa! That felt like when you go to take a step and you don't realize that there's one more stair. I did not anticipate how deep this grass would be. But I believe we still have one more corridor to go down, and then we're finished here. I love ceilings like this. I love them so much. You always have to remember to look up in places like this. You'll miss so much if you don't. And I truly believe that, especially if you come in with photography as your goal, every place, no matter how empty it seems, will have something to offer. There is always some cool shot if you just have the eye for it. Well, I think that's about it for the place. I'll just do my no-clip run and then some closing thoughts, I guess. Well, I couldn't find any legitimate way to gain roof access, so I just kind of no-clipped up here. And that's a real shame, because now that I'm up here, I can see this is actually a really nicely detailed exterior. It looks cohesive and appropriate, with just the right amount of detail. I really like this map a lot. I think, you might find it kind of boring, but I think this is one of the more realistic places I've seen. Because I've only been in one or two places that actually still had, like, tons and tons of equipment left behind. And those are gold mines for sure. But I'm in it from kind of an architectural and a historical standpoint. The only thing that could make a place like this better to me is, is if I maybe had some historical photos to compare to these empty rooms, because I find it's always so fun to kind of imagine the goings-on in a place, the people who walked where you're standing, the things that might have happened right there, the stories. You're now joining me in Steam VR home of all places, because I want to show off a technology that I honestly think is going to be a big part of the future of urban exploration, or at least I hope so. Because to me, a big part of exploring these places from a photography perspective is preserving what it was like to anyone who might be curious, with the knowledge that these places aren't going to be around forever, and you kind of have to document it while you can. I can't think of a better way to preserve a location and immortalize it than with photogrammetry. Now, I don't fully understand how it works, but basically, you take thousands and thousands of pictures, very labor-intensive, and requires a lot of technical skills, and then use those assets to piece it together into a 3D environment. And like I said, I'm not exactly sure technically how it's done, but it's like the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I want to show you a map here that's done that. Here we go, Lost Places Metal Foundry. A metal foundry ruin closed since 1993 or earlier. This living death is completely desolate, full of graffiti, garbage, damage. You can even find syringes in a special room. This is a very large project and workshop file. It may require some time to download depending on your connection. To generate the 3D models and textures, 1,236 photos were taken on June 30th and July 1st of 2017. It consists of 4 detailed rooms which are seamlessly connected and a stairway. One of the rooms is a large hall. The entire place is going to be demolished and steamrolled in the near future, as the owner finally sold it. So this is basically the last chance to see it, captured in VR. My thoughts exactly. I have more parts from different rooms on different floor levels, which I may expand on this one, or I may release them separately. Alright, let's try it. You remember when I said at the beginning that I wanted to see if VR could actually provide like a decent simulation of what it's like to explore? I'd say this is very, very close. This is so cool. This is so cool. It's almost like the graphical quality, maybe a little better, of Google Earth 3D buildings. Only far more labor-intensive to create. And look, once you make it into a 3D space, you can do whatever you want with it. There's pigeons hanging out in the rafters and on top of surfaces. This is so cool. This is another one of those locations that's triggering my ability to smell it. That's how real this looks. Of course, it is somewhat limited. Even with like 1,200 plus pictures, you can't really capture all the detail a space like this has to offer. But we're definitely getting there. Can't you actually use lasers to like actually really finely map the dimensions of a space? From there, I guess it would just be a matter of getting the textures, right? Which would surely still be very labor-intensive, but I'm convinced that this technology can go even farther than this. And some things, I guess depending on how closely the creator focused on certain objects in their photos, some things, it's literally like I'm just staring at a real surface. Of course, if you come over here, you'll start to see the limitations of this. If you don't go somewhere, you don't have that detail, and it kind of starts to fill in the blanks itself and look all splotchy, and yeah. And this is with 1,200 plus photos taken. I find that photogrammetry in VR tends to work a lot better once you get into smaller spaces like this. I mean, look, you can actually see all the fine grain in the plaster, the paint peeling. Absolutely incredible, the texture of the dust on the floor. This area, these tight spaces like this, it's literally like I'm just standing here. There is no difference between this and reality, almost. It even captures the way the paint peels off the walls, the depth to it. That paint peeling is 3D, and you have no idea how much that does for immersion. Half-Life Alyx was also very good about stuff like this. But there we are. Please push the like button to support my work. Already done, pal, but I will urge my viewers to do the same if they decide to try this for themselves. Of course, the links to all of this stuff will be in the description. This is so cool. This is so cool. And you know what's really impressing me? Is that somehow, I don't know how much work this is and how much of this is on the textures, but it's even managing to realistically capture the light and the way it would interact with an environment like this. A place like this, you have the moss and algae growing on the windows, and it really does color all the light coming through, which is another one of those things that kind of gives each room its own mood, its own feeling. And there's the void. I guess this is what happens when you don't have any information on an area. It has to fill in the blanks in a puzzle made only of blanks. But I believe back here is our special room. Hey, Pigeon. Yep, dirty old mattress, and if I recall, or I don't have to recall, the map explicitly said it, yep, a whole bunch of syringes on the floor. Even with heavy shoes on, you always want to be careful in a room like this. I really hope you start making better choices for yourself, man. Now, there is a part 2 of this map made from another part of the facility, so let's check that out. Yeah. Now, as you can see, it seems to have more trouble with detailed stuff like this, the really complicated textures and objects. Certainly having trouble with the plant life growing up in the middle, which I can only imagine what this would look like in real life. Oh, it's actually so pretty. Anytime there's a hole in the ceiling, life tends to sprout up just under it. Life, finds a way. Yep, there's our exit right there. Wow, this place really would have been wide open. And it's like I was saying before, green light to come on in and do whatever you please, which is why it's so shocking that there's so little graffiti. I mean, there was a lot in some areas. This might be one of my favorite rooms in VR. Tight to capture a lot of detail, and a lot of detail there is. A space like this actually tricks my brain into thinking I'm really standing here. This is what I imagine Resident Evil 7 in VR on PC would look like. What is that weird, ominous hum? I don't know who it is in every abandonment that always takes it upon themselves to shatter the toilets to smithereens. Look at this. I mean, I'm becoming a parody of myself looking at details, but I just can't get over how detailed this paper is hanging off the ceiling. It's fully 3D and textured and everything. That is incredible to me. I want to learn how to do this, even if it's only for a small space. Oh, and I've just realized, why would someone have draped it over here? Sometimes you come upon the aftermath of something that is so far gone that you can't even speculate about what it was for, but this was clearly done post-abandonment. Tell you what, I don't know how to make stuff like this, but I do have a 360 camera. It's kind of cheap, nothing special, but maybe I'll take you guys along for the ride one of these days. And some things just don't belong in a spot. It's a baby stroller, but it looks like it's been, like, melted or something. This is the kind of thing that, to me, I would come upon this and think, you know what? This was somebody's photo shoot. Anything back here? Ah, another one of these. Yep. Good job, creator. Yeah, so thank you for bearing with me through this. I know it was a little different from other videos that I've done, but it's something that gave me an opportunity to talk about things that I usually don't get to talk about. Because I talk about urban exploration a lot, but it always tends to be kind of more from a horror perspective, and I find that most times that's not what the experience is actually like. There are creepy moments, but for the most part, it's about the history and the architecture and so many other things beyond that. And I hope that I was able to put that across through this. But if you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more creepy and comfy content. If you have any ideas for other videos you think I should do, the best place to do that will be at the Discord, which I will link in the description. If you want to download any of these maps for yourself, those links will also be down in the description. And as always, I will see you in the next one.